We are at the first going to be looking at this tonight. Did everybody bring their book? Do you have one or do you need a loaner? Okay, I need them back when you're done. Anybody else need a loaner? Anybody else? I didn't know how many would attend, so the church bought 10 of these. I'm using one because they changed editions on me. I have us being at about page 31. What does anybody else have? Thereabouts? I thought we probably should finish up the section that talked about qualities of elders, and we didn't finish last week, so I will start off. I believe that Lloyd read G, apt to teach. I believe you read that, Lloyd. So let's begin with patience. 1 Timothy 3:3. The word epiekes, which means gentle or moderate or patient, equitable, fair, mild. Roy Hearn, a gospel preacher of a former day, says, undisturbed by obstacles, delays, enduring sufferings and persecutions, James 1, 1 Peter 2, able to bear up under strain. And then with all the strain and stress that elders meet, it takes patience to work through the problems and bear up under adverse circumstances. Godly elders are often not appreciated for the great and good work they do in putting up with immaturity among some members. I want to stop after each one of these and give time for discussion or question. So after each of the capital letters there, I'm going to stop. So somebody has something about patience or endurance. Lloyd, I know that you, a number of years ago, went through a church division, and that would try anybody's endurance and patience. I've been through, I think, two in my life, and the last one, the one I remember the best, was taxing. It was awful. Do you have any insights you want to share?
Well, I think the trait of endurance is probably the most essential trait that one can have, because they're going to, whatever's going on is going to persist for a little while, at least, before it shakes itself out. I know Bill has been through this.
Yeah.
Most of us who've been Christians for a long time
Have gone
been
through, yeah.
either in the center of one or very close to the center anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It will try your patience, certainly, but endurance is essential.
It's a lot like when a Revelation says, be faithful unto death, I'll give thee the crown of life. It's that sort of a patience, that sort of an enduring patience.
To use a military analogy, is stick to your guns.
Rich, do you need to borrow one of these for the evening?
Sure.
We're on page 31. Andy, would you read letter F for given to hospitality?
Page 30?
I have it on page 30. On page 30, I'm sorry.
Given to hospitality, 1 Timothy 3:2, Titus 1:8. Philoxanos, maybe. Thayer says hospitable, generous to guests, giving to hospitality. Roy Deaver An elder must have a genuine and sincere interest in helping others. He must lead the church to be hospitable, to be concerned about the needy, the widows, and the orphans. An elder is one who is ready and eager to entertain others. He is one who enjoys such association and fellowship. He is a people person. Hebrews 13:2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. 3 John 5:8, verses 5 through 8. Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers which have borne witness of thy charity before the church, whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well, because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow workers, fellow helpers to the truth. Acts chapter 15, 3 and 4, 21, 5, Romans 15, 24, 1 Corinthians 16, 6 and 11, and Titus 3, 13.
All right. Now, I never personally, till I read this, I never thought of doing benevolent work as showing hospitality. But I guess in a sense it is. I hadn't thought about it that way. Somebody else.
My book and the one you're going by, I guess, how we reordered it.
What book do you have? Did I give you the wrong one? Show me the front of it.
We just covered patient, which is letter H. And
Okay, well, have I backed up?
we went back to
I've
L.
backed up. I'm sorry. My page turned on me.
I wasn't sure which one
Well,
was going.
if I get my signals straight, it would help. Well, I'm sorry about that, Andy. Thank you, though. Thanks for what you did.
I'm good at following instructions.
Well, okay. Rich, do you read aloud in assemblies? Would you read from on page 32 at the top?
Aye. Are we at?
Yes, sir.
You sure?
Well, as sure as I'm going to
Ruleth
get.
well his own house.
Sure as I'm going to get.
Ruleth well his own house. 1 Timothy 3:4. Greek for prosene, ruleth. To stand before in rank, preside, or by implication to practice, maintain, and be over the rule. Superintend, protect, or guardian, or care for. Greek kalos, well. In a good place, honestly, to recover full and well. Greek idios, own, pertaining to self. Same word, own. Greek oikos, dwelling, identification of family, more or less related. He is the head of the house of the family. He takes charge and performs his duties. He takes his responsibilities seriously. He is not ruled over by his wife. A bossy, domineering, unruly wife disqualifies a man from being an elder.
All right. Let me, I know that last,
You better not pursue that, Philip. You're going to be stepping off the toes.
that last remark probably get a lot of us in trouble.
You might have a moving lesson tonight.
Yeah, well. And it isn't popular in our culture, but it's still what it says. I remember a man from my young days who was a deacon, and his wife was, as they say, the neck that turns the head. It was not a good situation. He started raising a ruckus because she didn't like a decision that had been made, and it caused a problem. Has anybody something to say about this, or are you all saving your own necks?
Well, the wife is the helpmeet to me and her husband, and if she takes her responsibility seriously, she's not going to try to dominate her husband. If she's a Christian woman, she's going to know I don't know any better way of saying this, but she'll know her place according to God's word. That, and this is the analogy I've got. God made woman from man's rib. He didn't make woman from man's foot where man could walk over her, but he didn't make the woman from man's head where she could rule over her. So that's the way I sort of think about it, that she's a helpmeet, and she can be very valuable to a elder in the sense that there'll be problems arise that he will probably discuss with her first, especially if it pertains to a feminine side or a woman's, perspective. And it would be very difficult for a man to be an elder if his wife was domineering, because that would show among the congregation, and I think that would hinder his ability to shepherd in any kind of way.
Okay, someone else? Well, let us move along.
But I've got one other thing
Oh.
about ruling his house, his own house. Now, some people might think, or this is my thinking, when you have your children at home, you can sort of dictate the rules of the house. But once they move out, they're on their own, and you'd have, unfortunately, you could have less influence depending on who they might marry or who they might associate with, or things of that nature. So if a member of the church would frown upon an elder because maybe his child has changed, because I've known elders' children, once they became married, they might marry a spouse of another denomination and take them completely away from the church. But I don't think that is the elder's fault, because he and his wife raised his children right, but because of outside influence, they fell away from the church. So I think that's very important to note there.
Okay, someone else? Jack, would you read tonight from letter J?
Children in subjection with all gravity, 1 Timothy 3:4. Faithful children not accused of riot or unruly, Titus 1:6. Greek tenon, children, Strong's 5043, a child, daughter, or son. Thayer, offspring, plural, children, without regard to sex or child. 3. The word children, teknon, includes one or more. The word is found 100 times in the New Testament. It is translated using both plural and singular words. Children, 72 times. Daughters, 1. Sons, 6. Child, 5. Son, 15. And dieth, once. Child, Matthew 10:21, Luke 1:7, and Revelation 12:4 and 5. Son, Matthew 9:2, 21:28, Luke 2:48, 15:31, 16:25, 1 Corinthians 4:17, Philemon 2:22, Titus 1:4, Philemon 1:10. Ephesians 6:1, children, obey your parents in the Lord. The word children includes a single child. If not, then must a single child in the family obey his or her parent? Yes. See also Ephesians 6:4. Genesis 21:7, Sarah said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. Sarah never had but one child, Isaac, yet she had children. 1 Timothy 5:9 and 10, let not a widow be taken into the number under 80 years old, having been the wife of one man, well reported of for good works. If she have brought up children, what if she had brought up only one child? We commonly use the word children to indicate both singular and plural. For example, state law requires that all families with children enroll them in school by age 6. Does the law apply to those families with only one child? Yes. The words sheep and deer are used to indicate both singular and plural. More information on children and child can be found on page 50 of this book. Greek huptotage, subjection, 1 Timothy 3:4, Strong's 5292, subordination or subjection. Greek symbos, gravity, 1 Timothy 3:4, Strong's 4587, vulnerableness, honesty, entitles to reverence and respect. Greek pistos, faithful, Titus 1:6, Strong's 4103, trustworthy, trustful, believing, faithful, sure, and true. Thayer, in the New Testament, one who trusts in God's promises, Galatians 9, is convinced that Jesus has been raised from the dead, one who has become convinced that Jesus is the Messiah and the author of salvation, a believer. Acts 16:1, then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was a Greek. 2 Corinthians 6:15, and what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? Acts 16:15, and when she was baptized in her household, she besought us, saying, if ye have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come into my house and abide there, and she constrained us. Greek Esocia riot, Titus 1:6, Strong's 8:10, excess riot. Greek anatoptotus, unruly, Titus 1:6, Strong's 506, unsubdued, insubordinate, in fact or temper, disobedient, that is not put under unruly. 1 Timothy 3:5, for if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? Noel Meredith, the conduct of a man's household is evidence of his ability for directing the affairs of the church, but if he does not do well with his household, he will not do well with the members of the church. The elder should have his children in subjection. Unruly children will prevent any man from serving successfully as an elder in the church. Any man who is unable to govern his children correctly by maintaining good discipline is no man for oversight in the church. How many of his children must believe or be faithful? Must they all be Christians? Roy Deaver, as a family man, he must have children. Two things are specifically said about these children. One, they must be children who believe, children who are Christians, and two, they must be children who are not accused of riot and who are not unruly. It seems to me that the answer has to be all his children who are accountable. Two, of how many of his children must it be true that they are not to be accused of riot? Answer, all of them. Three, of how many of his children must it be true that they are not to be unruly? Answer, all of them. What about his children once they leave home? One of the greatest tests of a man who has been trained his children is their conduct once they leave home. His children are a reflection of his training. Are they a blessing and commendation to him, or a hindrance and reproach? Is it their conduct an embarrassment to him in the church? Does it hinder the church if he continues to serve when his children are unfaithful?
Okay, thank you. Bill's already made comment on that. Who else has a comment on that? Well, Bill, did you have something further to say?
No.
All right, anybody? I have known kids who, while still at home and being brought to worship assembly by their parents, would even act up in the worship assembly very disrespectfully. I remember one started drinking multiple cups of the fruit of the vine just to show disrespect. And that sort of thing, of course, would maybe be an extreme. Some who are unruly, I guess, they could go out and be getting drunk or something like that, and other kinds of shenanigans out not be involved with. The next one is of a good report of them who are without. Bill, would you read from that?
I'll do that, but I'm not into the Greek, so.
That's all right. Just do what you can.
A good report of them which are without. That says Strong's, beautiful, valuable, or virtuous, better, honest, well, worthy, noble, honorable. Strong's, evidence given, judicially or generally, I guess. Record, report, testimony, witness. External, outside, outward, without, from without. He is a man whose character is good and honorable. The quality of having a good report comes from those who are not Christians, those outside of the church. Such a report would have or would come from those who are upstanding themselves. Those who report worthy of consideration, their judgment is fair. There will always be those who are not worthy of consideration. They despise what is good and right, and certainly lend no support to such. An elder is to have a good reputation among those outside the church as well as inside the church. H.E. Phillips, the man who has the reputation of being self-willed, arrogant, contentious, whose word is no good, who cheats and steals in business, a drunkard, etc., cannot qualify for this work. 3, lest he fall into reproach and the snare of the devil. An excellent tool of the devil is to aid an elder in falling into reproach with the church. This would cause as quickly as anything for an elder to lose his influence among the membership. When an elder loses his respect, influence, example, and admiration among the members, he can no longer effectively serve until such time that confidence is restored in him and his influence is regained.
All right, do you have a remark on this?
Well, I just have to agree with everything. I mean, if the congregation doesn't have the confidence in the eldership, they're likely not to follow because of circumstances that they think that would cause that elder to be not up to the standards in the scriptures.
I recall a man that I knew all of my life who was served as, at one time as a preacher, once as an education director, once as a deacon, and then as an elder. And he was the treasurer for the local Rotary Club, and he couldn't withstand the temptation of the money. He had to step down as an elder because of that, of course. Was able, I think, to avoid jail, but only just. I think family must have paid it back for him. David Knowles, would you read letter L?
A lover of good men, Titus 1:8, Philagathus, fond of good, a promoter of virtue, love of good man. The entire phrase, a lover of good man, is just one word in Greek. Literally, a lover of good, all that is good and right and holy. Thayer describes it as loving goodness. Roy Hearn, appreciation for all that is good, noble, and benevolent. Helpful to all in this congregation to develop as Christians in their efforts to qualify as good. Individuals may differ as Peter and Paul in nature, but there must be mutual love and respect.
Okay, that was a short one. Jack got the long one. Do you have a remark on it?
We've talked about it in previous classes, but when you're in a leadership role, you're going to deal with different personalities. So I think where he says, you do have to have the mutual love and respect because not everybody's going to be cookie cutter. Everybody's different, and a lot of the situations that you're going to have to deal with as an elder are obviously going to be different. I don't have experience with it, but I was in a household that I don't want to say was badly affected by it, but I know it calls for long nights and difficult situations, and you feel for those that have to make those choices and deal with those things. But you do, at the end of the day, have to have that mutual respect and love for everybody because the elders' ultimate goal is they're looking out for your soul.
Okay, somebody else. Well, let me see. Chad, would you read the next one? Just.
Titus 1:8, Strong's 1342, equitable in character or act. By implication,
Yes, sir.
innocent, holy, just, meet, righteous. Thayer, righteous, observing divine and human laws, one who is is such as he ought to be. Upright, virtuous, keeping the commands of God. The negative idea predominating, innocent, faultless, guiltless, in a narrower sense, rendering to each his due, and that in a judicial sense, passing just judgment on others, whether expressed in words or shown by the manner of dealing with them. He is one who deals fairly, without respect of persons or showing partiality. Romans 2:11, 1 Timothy 5:21.
Chad, in your role as a superintendent, you probably have to be especially cognizant of this, dealing with the different personnel you do?
Yes, and, reading that and passing just judgment on others, and making difficult decisions about things. Sometimes I think it's easy to get caught up in those that would want that decision or just judgment to be different than what you come up with.
Mhm.
I think, something that you have to keep in mind. There's also a vast group out there that understand those decisions that maybe you don't hear from as much. It kind of reminded me of one of the other passages I read. Back in Caves. The quality of having a good report from people outside of the church, that report would come from those who are upstanding themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the challenge in a leadership role like that, is to be just and to handle those situations justly, even though you've got a group, no matter what decision you make,
Someone might be like it.
isn't going to be unhappy.
Yeah, okay. All right. David, Brandon, would you read the one called Holy?
Holy, Titus 1, verse 8, hallowed, pious, sacred, sure, holy mercy shalt be. They are undefiled by sin, free from wickedness, religiously observing every moral obligation, pure, holy, pious. Titus 2, 11 and 12. For the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we shall live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. 2 Corinthians 6, 17 and 18, chapter 7, verse 1. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Lord Almighty. Let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God.
I think it's interesting, David, you may have a comment on it. I think it's interesting that he doesn't assume that they're already perfected, but that they're in the process of perfecting. Do you have a comment on what you read? Or an observation?
I guess an observation would be in Titus, those are qualities that the elder should have. And then the 2 Corinthians verse is pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Okay. All right. Guess we start over. We go to letter P. No, I'm sorry, O. My eyes sometimes skip over things. Lloyd, would you read O?
All right, it's based on Titus chapter 1, verse 8. Means strong in a thing, that is masterful in it, self-controlled in terms of appetite. Thayer's comment about it is having power over, possess of a thing, mastering, controlling, curbing, restraining, controlling oneself, temperate and continent. One who has control of his passions, of his temper, and of his tongue.
All right, what do you have to observe?
I just think that's one who is, I almost said the word temperate. Because that's the operative word.
Yes,
He's
sir.
one who's not an extremist, but one who is thoughtful and in control of his passions, his temper, and his tongue.
Okay. I wonder if a good synonym would be moderate. If that has enough similarity.
I don't know. I guess in some things you can't be
No,
both temperate and moderate.
no, there's some things you have to be absolute about, aren't there? Okay. Rich, would you read letter P?
I was hoping I'd get O.
You were what?
I was hoping I'd get O.
Well, if you want to read it again, go ahead. Go ahead and read it again.
Holding fast to the faithful word, Titus 1:9. To hold oneself opposite to, therefore, or that is by implication, adhere to care for, hold fast, hold to, support. There, to hold before or against, hold back, withstand, endure. To keep oneself directly opposite to anyone, hold firmly to cleave to. Strong, they're trustworthy, trustful, believe, faithful, sure and true. Strong's 3056, something said, etc. This quality is a must be a faithful leader. Without it, he's a failure. As he hath been taught, that he may be able to as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. Titus 1:9. Shepherds protect from danger without and within. It takes men of courage, conviction, and ability to stop the mouths of those who wreck and make havoc of the church. 2 Thessalonians 2:15. Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which you have been taught, whether by word or by epistle, or our epistle. Titus 2:7 and 8. In all things showing thyself a pattern of good works, in doctrine showing uncorruptness, godly sincerity, sound speech that cannot be condemned, that he is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you.
Let me ask a question of you. How would you paraphrase holding fast the faithful word? If you were to put that in your own vocabulary.
Staying faithful.
Staying faithful, okay? All right. Andy, I'll try to give you one no one's read yet. Under Roman numeral 9, we're down to the negative qualifications of the elders. If you would read A, I would appreciate that.
Well, one thing that I have noticed here in the qualifications for an elder, meekness is not listed as a qualification for
Weakness?
meek.
Meekness.
It's not specifically, we haven't specifically done. And meekness being strength or power under control would seem to be obviously implied, meaning that not that you are not capable of things, but you have those things under control. I guess being temperate is the closest thing to that, but it's not that you can't be dangerous, or you don't have passion, or you are not a willful person. It's that you have it under control.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are human traits that we all have. God gave us those things, and it's up to us to control them.
Okay.
Okay. The negative qualifications of elder. A, not given to wine. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 3, in Greek, me, not, Strong's numbers 3361, particle of qualified negation, not. Greek, paronius, given to wine, Strong's numbers 3943, staying near wine, tippling, topper, given to wine. Thayer, one who sits long at the wine, at his wine, given to wine, drunken, given it the secondary sense, quarrelsome, over wine, hence brawling, abusive. The significance of the phrase given to wine conveys the idea of the disposition, character, or trait one displays when under the influence of alcohol. The ASV translates the word peronis as brawler. This has to do with the attitude or actions one displays while under its influence. His judgment is hindered, and he becomes one ready to quarrel and or fight. The fact that deacons are not to be given to much wine, 1 Timothy 3:8, adds another warning concerning the drinking of alcohol. This does not at all imply that elders cannot have any wine while deacons can have a little. The idea conveyed concerning much wine is the addicting qualities of alcohol. It refers to the hold addiction wine, alcohol has on a person. An individual who would be an elder or deacon must not be one who is enslaved or addicted to or controlled by any person or thing. He is not an individual who acts rashly or carelessly as though intoxicated with alcohol. The use of the word much does not imply that a little is acceptable. Ecclesiastes 7:17, be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Does this mean you can be a little wicked as long as you do not do too much? Romans 6:12, let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Would a little sin be all right as long as it did not reign in us? Can one commit fornication and adultery moderately? Is a little adultery okay? 1 Timothy 3:3, not given to wine, and 3:8, not much wine, gives a double warning concerning alcohol. Verse 3, the quarrelsome attitude and disposition of one influenced by it. Verse 8, the addicting qualities inherent in it. An elder will not be fooled or deceived by either. Old Testament priests, under penalty of death, were forbidden to drink wine or strong drink when they ministered in the tabernacle. Leviticus 10:8 through 11.
All right, do you have a remark on that? Comment?
Even if you're addicted, keep it under control. Don't do it. Be meek in that. Be temperate. Have yourself in subjection.
I think by the time you get addicted to it, you're not in control of much of anything.
The idea of yielding not to temptation,
Yeah, it's better not to start.
but not stop.
Okay,
Hey Philip,
sir.
when I was a young kid, I remember a preacher saying he was teaching his lesson on alcohol. He said if you drink one drink, you're one drink drunk.
I've heard that.
I was just gonna ask your opinion on that.
Well, you're one drink under the influence, whether or not, you know, where the line is where you break over, I don't know, and the best course is just not to drink, in my estimation. And this comes as a person who has had alcoholics in my family, and I've seen a little bit of what it does to people. And I remember preaching the funeral for an alcoholic once, and how sad his grown children were that it had ruined their relationship with their daddy. It certainly can hurt you. I know what I have read says that the wines of the days in which the Bible was written weren't near so strong as the alcohol we have today. They didn't have distilled spirits back then. And it would be more like one of the milder beers or something like that.
Well, it's an example not only pertains to wine, it's the abuse of anything. I mean, yes, wine is listed specifically, but
Well,
I
I
don't
think,
know, did they have marijuana back then? Did they have cocaine? Did they
I
have,
suspect they have magic mushrooms.
you know, it's the abuse, it's the abuse of anything that comes between you and God and your ability to worship and serve.
I think really what we're talking about is that which alters your sense of reality and your perception of morality and such like that. At least that's the way I've taken it
I
over
mean,
time.
I hate to think that they're condoning, you know, cocaine
Mhm.
or heroin or magic mushroom.
Well, some of the Native Americans use peyote.
Does that make it all right?
No, what I'm saying is, you asked whether they had it back when, and I'm just answering. Um,
Well, I once knew a fellow, he was a deacon in the church, and he adhered to the idea of not being a drinker. But when he got 800 or 1,000 miles from home on a trip, whether a business trip or whatever, he fell over a little bit.
Hmm.
And finally, word of it got back, and he took a major hit in his influence and his credibility because the example that he had set was to be kind of a charlatan
mhm.
who really wasn't sincere, but he managed according to the circumstances. And I don't believe you can be a part-timer.
Well, and some of the expectations are, who here can live up to every one of the expectations put here, every moment of their lives? It is a growing process. It's a job that you agree to take on and you try your best. Yes, you fail and nobody's perfect. So some understanding, you take on the job as an elder, can you live up to every one of the expectations every moment of every day of your life?
Certainly not perfectly.
Jack, is it your turn?
Yeah.
Would you read number, letter B?
No striker. 1 Timothy 3:3, Titus 1:7, Greek, plektes, Strong's 41:31, a smiter, pugnacious, quarrelsome striker. Thayer, bruiser, ready with a blow, a pugnacious, contentious, quarrelsome person. H.E. Phillips, striker, one who hits with force, either with the hand or an instrument. Pugnacious, disposed to fight, inclined to fighting, quarrelsome, fighting. Brawler, a noisy fellow, a wrangler. Roy Deaver, he is not to be quick-tempered. He is not to be one who carries a chip on his shoulder. He is not to be a violent person. A striker is one who is easily provoked to anger and ready to fight or strike back. He lets his temper get the best of him. An elder is not such a person.
All right. Let me ask a question. Can you be a striker without using your fists? Can you do it with your mouth? I think
Yeah.
I've known some.
I think so.
I think so. I've known some who were verbally and emotionally abusive to other people. Didn't lay a hand on them, but the damage was done.
Well, I mean, it says quarrelsome. I mean, you know, somebody starting quarrels and do that verbally.
Dan, do you wish to read tonight?
Yeah,
Would you read from letter C on page 39?
I will give it a try.
All right, thank
Not
you.
greedy, filthy lucre. 1 Timothy 3:3 and Titus 1:7. Greedy lucre, gain sordid, given to filthy lucre. And Strong's vile conversation, vile communication, also in a part of that idea. Thayer, it means eager, the greedy part means eager for base gain. I assume by base he's talking about the wrong kind of gain.
Yes, sir.
Evil gain. Also Thayer, filthy is foul speaking, low and obscene speech. So if you're in a boardroom where everybody has a foul mouth, it might be hard to not have filthy lucre, I suppose. He is not a person whose aim is money and material possessions. I think he will not be a person who's always trying to work a deal with somebody.
By that, what do you mean?
Well,
Trying to outdo someone?
trying to get you to commit to something that will make him money,
Oh,
get you to sign up for, I don't know, buy something you got or lend him some money, something like that. Always working a deal. I've known people like that. He is not one who seeks gain and is ready to obtain it by whatever means. He will not engage in an illegal drugs, insurance fraud, or immoral business, sell or trade in alcohol or pornography. That one, the alcohol and pornography, rings a bell with me, and it has bothered my conscience, I guess, over the years. We had a deacon here that, you know, I think my memory may be flawed, but he managed a store, and the people that owned the store said, you got to either put in alcohol or pornography, and he chose alcohol. I would have had a tough time with that. Either one of those. He's not interested in taking advantage of others for his gain. He is more concerned about spiritual wealth than he is material wealth.
I think, Dan, we should notice that he, in number 4, the phrase, by whatever means.
Yeah,
I think that's really the
yeah.
content of what we're looking at. What do you have to say about what you've read?
Now that not greedy of filthy lucre, what that's saying really is that all elders should be farmers.
Is that it?
No, I don't think so, Al. We'd starve.
Because elders, I mean, farmers are not greedy, not after filthy. They're not greedy or they wouldn't be farmers.
Frustrated farmers.
Huh?
Frustrated.
Yeah. Worn out, tired, bent double.
Bill, would you read D?
Sure. Not a brawler, 1 Timothy 3:3. Strong's 269, peaceful. Thayer, abstaining from fighting. Roy Hearn, not a wrangler, but quiet and peaceful, not a loud, noisy quarreler. A brawler is one who loses controls of emotions to go wild. He may be angry with righteous indignation. Jesus looked with anger on those who would accuse him. Mark 3:1-5. He was angry when he cleansed the temple. John 2:13-17 and Matthew 21:12-13. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Ephesians 4:26.
All right, as always, I ask for comments.
Well, I think that gets back to temper again. If you can control your temper, you're not going to be a brawler.
Mhm.
I think that sort of goes hand in hand. And I was always taught that if you lost your temper, you couldn't reason correctly, because you was just focusing on, if you wanted to hit somebody or get even with somebody, that your mind was totally focused on that, and all other things you couldn't concentrate on. So we definitely don't need to be brawlers. We need to love our brethren and not be ready to punch them out.
Okay.
What does Roy Hearn mean by not a wrangler? What's a wrangler? What's bad about that?
You ever heard about someone getting into a wrangle about something?
Well, I've heard, not really. I mean, I've heard a meaning of wrangler that I will.
Well, wrangling about something is just arguing and fighting about it. As far as I know, that's all it means.
I don't use that word in that
Well,
way.
it's all right. It's all
I'm
right.
sorry?
So that's great.
Yeah, all right.
We have been at this about an hour. It's time to take a short break. For those of you who need to do that. Bill, is it your turn?
No, I just read.
Did you call it?
David then. Non-covetous.
Oh, I haven't checked on it.
not covetous. Strong's without covetousness. Thayer says not loving money. He loves God, his word, and the souls of men more than great riches. He is not persuaded by gain. He is not so covetous that he can be bought. He does not wish for gain that he will compromise the truth to get it. He is not persuaded by fallen information. Colossians 3:5, covetousness, which is idolatry. Luke 12:15, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesses.
That's rather brief. Do you have some observation?
I think this one goes into conjunction with the not greedy of filthy lucre. An elder has to have his mind on things above. Things of this world really don't matter. Because, I mean, it's going to vary. Some are going to accumulate quite a bit, while others are either, if you want to call it modest or whatever. But this, again, is just taking the focus away from material things and what we should be concerned with.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, covetousness is when you're looking upon what someone else has and you want it for yourself. And I guess within reason, you know, everybody may have a thought like that comes across, but Bible also tells us whatever state we're in to be content. So we need to live by that and live within our means and understand that we, no matter where we're at in our lives, we are truly blessed. Some may seem to be more blessed than others, but again, you're focusing on the spiritual blessings and not the material.
Okay. So a lot of it's a matter of emphasis.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you've got to emphasize what's important, and of course, if your leaders aren't, then your followers definitely are not going to.
Okay.
I think the Apostle Paul is a perfect example of that, because there were times that he had plenty, and there was times he lacked, but yet through it all, he stated that he was content, whether he had a lot or if he had very little or none.
Okay. David?
In number 5 there where it says he is not persuaded by falling contribution, that mean like the persuaded word there, swayed to and fro, or?
Well, I think it's persuaded to do something they ought not to. Not convinced by it. Not his decisions are not swayed by the fact that the contribution is done. If he's made the right decision and someone holds out his contribution, that doesn't sway him.
No.
I think. Chad, will you read number or letter F?
Not a novice, 1 Timothy 3:6. Strong's 3504, newly planted young convert. Thayer, one who has recently become a Christian. Roy Hearn, incapable of responsibility. An engineer on a railroad, pilot of a ship, baby over a household. Green lumber in a house, moral and spiritual qualities, aptitude, studiousness, in addition to age determined eldership. In addition to age. But, verse 6, thus being lifted up with pride, he fall into condemnation of the devil. The devil suffered condemnation because he was lifted up with pride. The authority, power, position, prestige of being an elder would likely cause a novice to be lifted up with pride and conceit, which must not be found within an eldership. Pride seeks personal goals instead of the good of the congregation.
Okay, what might you say about this?
And so I go back up to that moral and spiritual qualities, aptitude, studiousness, in addition to age, determine leadership or eldership. But, you know, as we read through these, most of these I've thought of, because even when we've gone through some that I feel like it was being temperate and things, I don't necessarily agree that it's about age as much as it is about maturity and reaching a level of maturity that you can be temperate or moderate, not a novice, not being taken by pride because you have that level of maturity about you. And that authority and power position, I think being able to hold that back is the
Okay, somebody else? Is there a minimal age when a person can be made an elder? What if, you gotta be a 35 to be a senator, Cindy?
Old enough to be the husband of one wife and have more than one child, believe me.
Okay, all right.
When an elder is an elder just for the power of it, it becomes pretty evident to all that's around.
Okay. All right. I know one fellow who was appointed an elder when I was young, had not been in the congregation for very long, and some people questioned whether he would make a proper elder because he didn't know the congregation well enough yet. And some people think the word novice might include that idea a little bit. Certainly it wouldn't be wise till he really knows the congregation.
Well, I think that is directly applicable. You can be an expert in one thing and a novice at something else. Novice is not universal. It has to do with certain understandings and not others. So a man might be otherwise well qualified, but new to a congregation and wouldn't not knowledgeable about that congregation. So in that congregation, he's a novice.
Well, that's what point I was attempting to make.
Well, I think that would be a handicap to that person, because if the congregation didn't know him, I don't think they could instill confidence in him.
Okay.
Not being, there for that long. I think some experience is needed there to get to know, because would you want somebody to lead you that you really didn't know that well? I mean, I would be sort of fearful.
You could have the same thing for somebody that's been in that congregation for years and, be in the same position where they may be older in stature and age and still not know the congregation.
John, will you read letter G?
Yeah. Not self-willed, strong, self-pleasing, arrogant, self-willed, roaring, hence obstinate, governed by own will, no respect for the wishes or judgment of others, not to be dogged, stubborn, mulish, pig-headed, impenetrable to argument, bull-headed, headstrong determination. He is not a person that is so headstrong that he will not listen to reason and the sound judgment of the other elders. Jude 3, earnestly contend for the faith. There's a big difference in contending for the faith and contending for one's own opinion or ideal.
Okay, now you have a comment.
I was thinking earlier when David just made his comment about, what was it you said earlier? Because I thought, well, that applies to not self-willed. Being an elder just for the power, seeking an eldership just for the power, or being like a child and it's always got to be your way or, it's wrong. That goes right back to, number 2, not listening to the sound judgment of other elders.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, anyone's looking to be an elder for power, he's got it all wrong. It's a grave responsibility, and it needs to be treated as such, and realizing that the decisions that the eldership makes can have either a positive or a negative impact on a congregation, and the elder will be held responsible for those kind of decisions. So I think anyone's just seeking power better think about it again, because being an elder is not about being a powerful individual. It's about an individual who is trying to be godly and leading a congregation in the right direction.
He's an excellent servant.
Right.
You see, that's where you people, Bill, that recognize that are the ones that don't have that problem.
Right,
It's the individuals that
Don't,
don't
right.
recognize, that don't acknowledge why they're really doing it.
Well, I think in that case, the congregation owes it to themselves when they seek out individuals for the position of elders, that they need to consider that. And chances are, those traits will be noticeable to other people. And that would keep a individual from being nominated, being an elder.
So
So,
there's nothing a lot worse than a self-important, arrogant person
right.
up spouting off.
Yeah. And a lot of times though, that doesn't come, those traits don't become evident in individuals in any role until they have that taste or that position, you know.
I knew a fellow like that, John.
Yeah,
He went from one day being my friend to the next day
being
being,
your overseer or
Well,
whatever, I don't know what you.
I'm not quite sure what to call him,
Yeah.
but probably I just won't call him
After he
anything.
became an elder.
Yeah.
I just won't call him.
I mean, you know, I'm sure most of us have seen it in our daily lives where, you know, you're interacting with an individual and then they get put in a different position of a little more authority, and then all of a sudden they're, you know, the king.
I
And it
think
all
that-
goes to their head.
I think the real temptation here is to think that you know better. This is the way I like these tables to be arranged, and look, you guys should see it my way. You should arrange the tables like this, don't do the, you know, because that's, I mean, I can see the advantages to it, and if you don't see it, you know, too bad for you.
Someone else?
Well, I kind of relate this to being a good listener in a way. I spoke, it's one of my shortcomings that I have to work on a lot. When somebody says something that I don't wholeheartedly agree with, I have trouble listening to them because immediately my mind goes to framing how I'm going to respond. And so I halfway hear what's being said, and that sometimes it's got me in trouble because I misunderstood the whole point of what was being said, because I was so busy formulating my own response that I didn't listen very well.
Gets you in trouble, huh?
So I was interested in promoting my will as opposed to listening to what was really being said.
Anyone else? David, will you read the not soon angry one?
Titus 1:7, soon angry. Strong's is, I'm not sure what that word is.
Irascible.
There you go. Soon angry, irascible, prone to outbursts of temper, easily angered. Thayer, prone to anger, irascible, soon angry. He is not one easily insulted and ready to take offense. He is not touchy and easily irritated. It is obvious why God will not allow such a disposition in the eldership. Compare Ephesians 4:26, be ye angry and sin not. Anger is not necessarily sinful. David Lipscomb, oftentimes the Christian is brought face to face with sin, corruption, and crime so iniquitous that it would be a sin not to manifest deep indignation, a holy indignation.
All right. What do you have to say? You have a comment?
My wife would laugh if she knew I read the anger one. But,
Why is that?
But I'm better at it now than I used to be.
I don't get mad at people near as quick.
It's
Okay.
not
It's okay to
soon
be
angry.
angry. It's what you do after you get angry that's the problem.
Yeah, because Christ he was angry at the money changers in the temple,
That's
but
right.
yet he sinned not. He cleaned house, but he sinned not. So,
Lloyd, will you read under, did you have a comment you were going to make?
no.
would you read under number 10, the duties and responsibilities of elders to the congregation? And this was taken from a fellow preacher, Sidney Hall.
Letter A,
And read as much of it as you wish.
the duty and the responsibility, first of all, is to take heed to himself and to all the flock over which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers. Every man's obligation is to first make sure his own life is in order. If elders do not watch their own lives carefully, they will not be in a position to fulfill the requirements that demand that they keep the church pure. Take heed to thyself, from Timothy chapter 4, verse 16 says, and unto the doctrine continue. Take heed to thyself and unto the doctrine. Continue in them. For in so doing, thou shalt save thyself and them that hear me. This is said to Timothy, but the principle is the same everywhere. Letter B, exhibit watchfulness or care over the congregation. The direct quote is Acts 20 and 28. Take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock over which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers. 1 Peter chapter 5 verses 2 and 3. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. The comparison is to the oriental shepherd, who knows his sheep by name and protects them from the wolves, and who leads them. Watchful care involves protecting the congregation from false teachers, and knowledge is therefore a must. One must guard against the influence of division in the congregation. Sometimes elders themselves create the division or take sides. Be ready to act at the first appearance of danger. Some are hirelings. They do not know and do as they should. Elders must know the flock, that is the members. They know who they are, how many, their spiritual condition, their need, where they live. Are these members weak, worldly, careless, hobbyists? Are they sound in the faith? Can they be depended on? Elders must give an account of the members' souls. Reference Hebrews 13:7 and 17. Vigilance is a qualification. Slackness allows apostasy. And what about those who wander away and leave the 99? You have to care for them too. I'll stop there and let somebody else read a while if they want to.
All right, Andy, would you read starting at C?
Teach the word of God, apt to teach, 1 Timothy 3:2. They do not have to do all the teaching, but they must be able to teach, and they do teach as needed. Must have knowledge, 2 Timothy 2:15. Men who can't or won't teach fail in this qualification. They must exhort and convince the gainsayers, Titus 1:9 and Acts 20:28-31. Encourage the preaching of the gospel, Acts 16:4-5. D. Take the oversight of the congregation, 1 Peter 5:2-3. An elder is a ruler, a leader, not a lord or a boss. Episcopia, to look upon, inspect, oversee, look after. The eldership takes charge in overseeing the affairs of the church so the greatest good can be done. Rule and rule well, 1 Timothy 5:17-18. E. Watch for grievous wolves. Acts chapter 20, verses 29 through 31. Wolves are false teachers. Matthew 7:15. Elders must know enough to recognize false doctrine. Know the word. Know the brotherhood. Be informed concerning those who are leading the way into error. Keep the church pure. Ephesians 5:27. F. Support the weak and needy. Acts 20:35. 1. Help those in need. Acts 11:27 through 30. A. This work is not to be done by the elders alone, every Christian. Matthew 25:34 through 36. 1 Thessalonians 5:14. Number 2. Pray for the sick. James 5:14. G. Admonish the church. 1 Thessalonians 5:12. 1. To warn of a fault, to reprove gently and kindly, but seriously, to exhort, to put one in mind of something forgotten. Number 2. No respecter of persons, from Acts 10:34. Number 3. Uphold truth and right regardless of whom, when, and where.
Now, Andy, if you decide you want to pass it along, we will.
H. Consider and decide on church problems. Acts 15:6-32. 1. Settle difficulties. Give direction wisely. Can't make new laws. He or they must honor the laws God made. Number 2. Elders sometimes equivocate, hedge, dodge concerning problems that arise. A. Sometimes they attempt to make everyone happy, but there are times when they can't do so. B. Sometimes they must make the right decision based on Scripture and follow through with it even when some may become upset. That's why they are overseers. They must make difficult, hard decisions to keep the church on track. Number 3. Sometimes it calls for prompt and immediate action. A. Might have to get away from the once-a-month business meeting. B. If a man is unwilling to do this, he needs to get out of the eldership or not become an elder. C. Indecision or no decision regarding a matter is no leadership. D. One's inability or unwillingness to make a decision shows he is not elder material. Number 4. The church is not run by majority rule, vote of the membership, nor is it run by minority rule. And I'll stop there.
Okay, I'd like for you to comment on anything from what you've read.
It's almost the impossible job.
It is
It's the impossible task.
It's a hard job.
I'm wondering if the guy that wrote this has ever been an elder.
What?
I'm sorry.
What did you say?
I said, I'm wondering if the guy that wrote this has ever been an elder. He said,
I don't know. I don't know it if he
A whole
has.
lot of scriptures referenced there, so.
Well, now Sidney may have been, the guy that wrote this part may have been. Jack, would you read on the examples to a flock part?
Be examples to the flock. Hebrews 13:7. Remember them which have the rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation, a manner of life. Follow means to imitate. Their lives are a pattern to be imitated. Their examples must be worthy of imitation. Philemon 3:17-18. Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk, so as ye have us for an example. For many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1. Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. Examples in what? Word, faith, charity, life, service, liberality, discipline, etc. Take the lead in exercising discipline. Discipline defined: to educate, to train, to develop members, to correct evil, punish. Discipline is needed in the home, school, state, church. The subject of disciplinary action are Matthew 18:15 through 17. The one who sins against you and won't repent, we are told to work it out. Matthew 5:23 through 24. When you sin against another and don't repent, we are told to work it out. 2 Thessalonians 3:6. Those who sin and walk disorderly. Disorderly is a military term meaning out of step or out of order. 2 Thessalonians 3:1 through 15. Busybodies. 1 Corinthians 5, immoral, fornication. Romans 16:17, 2 John 9:11, those who cause division. Any sin, all sin, for which one will lose their soul. Design of disciplinary action. 2 Thessalonians 3:14, 1 Corinthians 5:5, save the erring soul. 1 Corinthians 5:1 through 8, save the souls of the other members. Philemon 2:15 and 16, Matthew 5:16, save the souls of the world. 1 Timothy 5:20, to cause the rest to examine their own lives, elders, deacons, preachers, and members. 2 Corinthians 2:9, to show the church is subject to Christ in all things. Let it be observed here that the duty of withdrawing from the disorderly is enjoined, not upon the overseers, but upon the church at large, and the overseers become connected with it as leading actors only by virtue of their official relation to the church. McGarvey, The Eldership, page 40. Withdrawal of fellowship is not simply and only an eldership action, it is a congregational action. The membership are active participants not only with elders, but in the absence of elders.
Okay. What have you to say on what you've read?
It takes a lot of discipline.
Okay. All right. Dan, will you read from letter 11?
How many of them you want me to read?
However many you care to.
Okay, till I get tired.
Yeah, if you get tired, just pass it along.
The duties and responsibilities of members to the elders. Know the elders and appreciate them. First Thessalonians 5:12, and we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you. Know is to acknowledge, to respect, duly regard. To know fully, get to know them, be aware, know who they are. You can't ignore scriptural elders without being contrary to the scriptures. Esteem them, 1 Thessalonians 5:13, and to esteem them very highly in love for their work's sake, and be at peace among yourselves. Esteem, consider them, know their instructions, honor their leadership, love and respect them. Philippians 2:3, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in the lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Hebrews 11:26, esteeming the reproach of Christ. Greater riches than the treasure in Egypt. Let me read that again. Esteeming the reproach of Christ, greater riches than the treasure in Egypt. That means being suffering difficulties as a Christian is greater than the treasures in Egypt. Highly, very highly, exceeding high in love. For their work's sake, they are willing to take my soul into their care individually. They are willing to take the church into their care collectively. Hours of prayer for wayward members, heartbreaking sessions to preserve families, hours of talking with lost souls and wayward members, hours of planning to help the church be most effective. Honor them because they meet the qualifications of their willingness to serve in a thankless task, of the worthy and weighty work they do, They feed us and tend to our soul's needs. They watch for our souls. They are over us in the Lord. Of their work of faith, labor of love, and patience of hope. 1 Thessalonians 1:3. Of their delegated authority given to them by God to see that things are done correctly. I think the general picture there is that the elders, people should honor and seek to do what the elder tells them, short of an elder writing his own scripture. We can't do that. We must not. If we do that, we're in error. But if an elder asks you to do something that you just really don't think maybe you should, or you might not want to do it, then you really should. I think that's what he's saying, that's what they.
One thing that
That's the right way to view the role of the elder. I mean, to say you respect an elder and then, to say that you respect the eldership and then gripe about something that an elder may ask you to do shows that you don't respect the eldership, right?
Well, it could just mean you don't want to do it.
Well, like I said, it has to be scriptural.
I think one thing I've noticed through all of our readings, we talked about what a high standard this is, that no one is going to be perfect at this. There aren't any perfect people or perfect elders or perfect anybody else. So we've got to meet the qualifications, but we are human.
I agree with that. And a while ago, when I said that I wonder if this guy's ever been an elder, he was talking about that elders, it sounded, the tone of it was, you got a problem? Handle it. And handle it now. And sometimes you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to let it simmer.
Okay. Bill, will you take the next turn?
Be in submission and to obey the elders. Hebrews 13:17. Obey them that have rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. Submit means to surrender, give way to, resist no longer. Why? For they watch for your souls. Each member has a duty to submit, not just when you agree with their decisions. When they admonish, we must hear them. If they rebuke, we must heed. Whatever their decision, as long as it is in harmony with the Bible, must be respected and followed with love. There are various ways some respond to elders and their decisions. Some agree and submit. Some do not agree, but submit and do not cause trouble. Some do not agree and cause trouble. Some do not agree and leave. With indifference, ignore. Which ones of the above have Bible authority? Number one, and in some cases, number two. Unprofitable for you did not say it was unprofitable for the elders. Sometimes members say, they're not going to tell me what to do. Maybe not, but you can be lost just the same. My opinion is just as good as theirs. Maybe so, but God gave them authority to exercise their opinions and commanded you to submit your opinions to theirs. That is why they are the shepherds. I'll stop there.
Sorry, I jumped down into your section, didn't I?
Do you have a comment, Bill? I know you have a problem with part of that.
But you know, it's like we've been talking about. People, I guess, react in different ways. If somebody is truly bought in to the eldership as being shepherds that are going to lead, for their benefit, they would be more apt to follow than somebody, and I don't want to use church attendance as a example, but it seems like if you don't attend, you might not get to know your eldership as well. And if some issue comes up, and I was thinking about back when the pandemic came up, that was something, I wasn't elder then, but that was something that the eldership had to deal with. And it wasn't a very, it just wasn't a good situation, however way you went. And because
And it
some
wa-
people you were gonna please,
And it wasn't a very harmonious situation
Right.
either.
and some people you weren't gonna please, whichever decision you came up with, because people had different opinions on it. But in that case, I think that's where the eldership has to bond together, come up with a solution, even though they might not all be totally on board with it, but yet they all agree. There was no division with it. It didn't come down to a vote like 3-2 or whatever. They had to agree that the plan of action that was going to go forth was the best for the congregation at the time, at that situation.
That is, if there's no biblical.
Right now, but Dan,
Come in-
I know
come
what
in
you're,
with
I know what you're going to say, Dan.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I know what you, but.
No, I don't have anything in mind, Bill. What if?
Well, I think I knew what you, but anyway, I'm just saying though, sometimes there isn't just a clear cut
Yeah.
answer to a problem. And maybe the first time, your decision might, looking back on it, might have not have been the best one. But then the next time, if a situation comes up, you can draw on that experience. So,
Well, Bill,
That's-
I assure you, I agree with everything you
Okay.
said. I just
Okay.
wanted to,
yeah.
I just
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
caveat that it has to be.
Oh, yeah, it has to be
in accordance
scriptural,
with-
right. Yeah, if it's not doctrine, we don't have an opinion. Doctrine is doctrine, and we can't deviate from that.
It's matters of opinion.
Yeah, but opinions we can. And that was tough.
Honestly.
And I'm sort of glad that I wasn't elder then to have to make that decision, because it was tough.
Okay.
And, but, just getting back to that submitting, a lot of people have a problem with the word submitting. That just,
Kind of like judging.
yeah, I guess, because people don't want to think that
Evidently.
you have a definite authority over someone. They don't like that word. Just like some wives don't like that they're supposed to submit to their husbands. But
We get
But
back
I-
to that?
but well, it sort of came back around. But I guess what I'm saying is, we as Christians didn't write the rules. We didn't write the Bible. God,
We didn't write the rules.
Right.
Elders didn't write the
People
rules.
have a tendency to submit to things when they're presented in a manner that's kind, loving.
Well, that's true,
and-
that's true.
And the communication is there. When you feel like someone has your best interest in their mind and in their heart, you're more willing to submit to that person than an individual is to submit to someone who they feel like is not looking out for their best interest.
and that's true. That's why elder can't be overbearing, because that would turn somebody off. But like John said, if that person honestly believes that the elder has their best intentions at heart, hopefully they would, submit or agree or whatever terminology.
Find a
you
different
want.
word for it.
Right, yeah. Sometimes submit might have a negative connotation to some people, but
I think that goes back to, 2 weeks ago when we were talking about traits.
right.
And relationships was one of them, traits of a leader and having relationships. So if you have relationships with the flock, with the members, then there's more of a understanding there and more of an inclination, when there's tough decisions, to submit to the elders
judgment. And that gets back to the novice part. If you have a novice who's an elder, he might not know the congregation well enough for them to accept what he's saying. And so I think everything sort of ties in that we've discussed. That you're not going to be a so-called expert at maybe none of them, but at least you need to have some form of ability to these traits. You need to have some of them. Well, you need to have all of them, but I mean, to a certain degree is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think I'm going to stop. I think I've dug a deep enough hole.
David? David?
Well,
David Brandon?
you got-
David Brandon, did you had your hand up?
Yeah, no, I didn't forget. I just didn't know if I ever talked. Sorry.
No more questions, Dave.
In any difficult situation like we're talking here, when an elder has to confront a member, 3 words ring out to me. It's one, and this is on both sides. You gotta have some tact about yourself, and you gotta watch how it's presented, and you gotta have a good attitude about how you present it.
I wonder,
Those 3 words in a disagreeing circumstance kind of ring loud in that situation.
Okay.
do you suppose John the Baptist and Elisha would pass muster today? I don't know.
They'd have their critics too.
And they
Maybe
did.
they would.
They did, right.
And they did. Whose
They'd
turn
be
is it?
crucified.
Well, I got one other thing to say about, this section here about being in submission and people resisting. A lot of it has to do with their understanding of the scripture. So let's just say there was, the need to dismember someone. Well, if the elder gets up there and that's the first time, not dismember. I realized that, I was like, okay.
We got Doc over
Yeah,
there.
y'all know what, get the hatchet there.
I didn't realize that was
So.
Rough
but
rough crowd.
If that's the first time they have heard, that, they may be more likely to resist it or question why we're being so harsh, why we're treating that person that way. Whereas if they had, if that role of disfellowshipping people was a sermon and talked about, on occasion, not just when it's needed, but you instill that biblical principle and guidance in the minds of the congregation, long before you have to address it. I mean, a lot of people don't like getting hit cold by things, and I agree that they should understand this concept, but
Some people have done more reading than others.
yeah.
David?
Letter D, imitate the elders. Hebrews 13:7, remember them which have the rule over you, who have spoken into the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation. Number 1, mimic, act like. Number 2, continuous, habitual action. Number 3, conditional action. 1 Corinthians 11:1, be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. Number 4, implies their faithfulness and actions that will lead the flock to heaven. Number 5, we're to follow their love, faith, liberality, attendance, work, hospitality, etc. Letter E, receive not accusation against an elder without witnesses. Number 1, 1 Timothy 5:19, against an elder receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. Letter A, receive. To receive or admit with approval, accept. Letter B, this accusation is an accusation of sin with the witnesses provided. Letter C, the accusation must be well-founded. Number 2, easy to pick flaws and to be moat hunters. Matthew 7, 1 through 5. Number 3, elders can and do make mistakes, but be careful not to receive every report concerning them. Letter A, the Old Testament demanded 2 or 3 witnesses. You can find that in Deuteronomy 17:6. Letter B, the New Testament also finds it in 2 Corinthians 13:11 and John 8:17. And letter C, they must be reliable, reputable witnesses. Number 4, those proven to be in sin are to be rebuked. 1 Timothy 5:20 reads, them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. And I'll just stop at that one so we can comment.
Okay, what do you have to say?
Of course, imitate the elders. If you can't imitate them, then you've got the wrong elders. I mean, they've got to be the leaders, and they've got to be the ones that we would want to follow. And then when it says, receive not accusation against an elder without witnesses, it goes back to some of the stuff we've talked about with a novice that may not be that knowledgeable in the scriptures. They may come up with some accusation, but are they a reputable source? And then if what is being said concerning this elder or any Christian that you would want to dismember or disfellowship, you would want to have some witnesses. You don't want to, sorry, I thought it was funny, but you do want to have more than one or two sources. You can't go on just one person's hearsay against one other, because it might just be a situation where you have one person that's out for that particular person for whatever reason. So there's reasons that we have witnesses, and the Old Testament is written for our learning, and you can find it in Deuteronomy, but also you can find it in the New Testament. So if it was good enough then, obviously it was translated again into the New Testament, so it's good enough for us now in the Christian age.
Okay,
E3C, Philip.
pardon me?
E3C on that page. Shouldn't that be irrefutable witnesses?
I'm not sure where you are.
On section
E3C.
bullet 3.
Yeah, you want them to be reputable.
Yeah.
Believable.
Okay,
Yeah.
No, that's not that's reputable.
Refutable.
it's the same thing.
Well,
But it should be
it
irrefutable.
depends on how
You want
pronounce it.
reliable, reputable
Tomatoes,
witnesses.
tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want
Yours should be
reputable witnesses.
irrefutable.
You want reputable witnesses. Yeah.
Irrefutable.
Chad?
F is commend the elders for the good things that they do in 2 Corinthians 12:11. I ought to have been commended of you, for in nothing I am behind the very chiefest apostles, though I be nothing. All need encouragement and commendation. Are we as quick to commend as we are to condemn? 1 Corinthians 13:5b through 7, charity is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. G was count them worthy of double honor, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine, 1 Timothy 5:17 through 18. They are of great value and precious price when they manage the needs of the church well. Those laboring in the word and doctrine may have also